the Caribbean right now. Getting a little cold in here in Florida. It's a little chilly now.
That's why we need to bring in the heat. All right.
¿Cuál es el punto? El ácido está corrupto. Vida dedicado al paso contaminado, encaminado a los campos minados. Seres que gobiernan y controlan.
And I'm ready.
Yeah, Fonzie, look at you.
Oh yeah, Friday vibes on a Monday afternoon.
Friday vibes on a Monday afternoon. What's up, everybody?
What's up?
Happy Monday! And I love Mondays. So Monday's my favorite day.
Monday is an amazing day.
Is it your favorite day?
I do want to give a huge shout out to Steve Larson for changing our mindset
I
about
know.
Mondays.
I know, man. We're so excited, and I think
Yes.
we're like it's rubbing on the team and everybody.
I think
So good.
yes, definitely. People
So
are
good.
looking forward to Mondays now.
All right.
Guys, quick mention here. Shout out to the best team in the world, Arsenal. They lost yesterday, but it's okay. It's okay because you can always pick up from a defeat, learn from it, and move forward.
Oh man, well the real
Let's
team,
go.
the real team Barca won this weekend. So I'm just saying, hey, by the way, we need to like get our hips dancing because it was Thanksgiving. I hope everybody had an amazing Thanksgiving.
Yep.
We had a blast, a lot of food. We have like food for the next 2 weeks. So I hope you do too. And I think I'm ready. Fonzie, you ready?
I am absolutely ready.
All right.
We have an incredible guest. Ooh, on the other side, I can't wait to introduce him.
All right, here we go. All right. Fonzie, you ready? Game mode.
Let's do it.
We've got some
Hey,
fresh new
I'm
young
Luis.
talent
And
doing
I'm
some things
Luis.
that I know
And you're
you
listening
haven't
to the
heard
Content is
before.
Profit podcast.
Listen.
We spent the last 4 years learning the strategies and techniques from some of the top marketers in the world on how to create content that turns into profit.
If you'd like to learn more how to turn that content into profit, go to contentsprofit.com. Yeah.
Oh yeah, you know what to do. Go to Content is Profit right now, guys.
That's right.
And today,
Ooh,
incredible
tell me.
topic. Incredible. How to leverage other people's platforms to grow your business.
This is so good.
What?
This is so good because we always talk about your own platform, but this is like about others people's platform. It's like marriage made in heaven. That's so
It-
good.
it is absolutely fantastic.
Fonzie, I have a question.
And he
I have a
is
question,
the expert.
Yes, like he is the
Yes.
person.
It's going to be absolutely
But
amazing.
before that, Fonzie, do we have a sponsor today?
Indeed, we
Yes.
do have a sponsor. My brother and his one question.
I love that question,
And
man.
today's sponsor is your own The Biz Bros with Content Momentum. And you might be asking yourself, what is content momentum? Well, let me explain.
Tell me more.
If you produce long form content just like this one that you're listening to or watching, and you want to turn it into value packed bite sized assets, so then you can send them into social media like little minions so they can get more clients for you, please reach out, slide in the DMs at BizBro. We want to help you out just with that.
That's right, guys. Go ahead and subscribe. Smash the subscribe button so you know when the episodes are dropping on your phone every Tuesday, Thursdays, and Saturday. And follow us on social media at BizBros. Go.
That is right. And if you find this episode impactful, you know what to do. Don't forget to share it and leave a 5-star review. Thank you.
We met today's guest in what probably was the very last in-person event of 2020. Today's guest was one of the most awesome vendors at PodFest. His value of approach immediately grabbed our attention. He handed us his book and shared how to help podcasters and entrepreneurs. Let me tell you, out of all the vendors that were there that day, he's the one and only. Hold on. He is one of the only two who we still remember. He knew how to make an impression.
Good
Yeah.
job. I actually warned him about that line. I'm like, this line might be a little tough to read.
I got
but
it.
He's
I got
absolutely right. He's actually one of the only two that we remember. From the very beginning, we knew his business was genius. They personally introduced thought leaders to millions of ideal people they could serve for the betterment of all. You thought Stephen Covey was genius with his win-win approach to life? Think about that, guys. Today's guest, he took this to a whole different level. He's like win, another win.
And not only that, but his book, Podcast Guest Profits, is the Bible of podcast guesting. And if you have any doubts about that, go and listen to all 1,200 podcasts he has been on. Yes, 1,200. Absolutely mind-blowing. How does he do it? Well, that's what we're here to figure out today.
Please welcome owner of the highest rated podcast booking agency, Interview Valet, author of podcast Guest Profits, and probably the person that has been in the most podcasts ever, Mr. Tom Trump.
And probably the worst dancer you have ever had on your show, but I love the music.
Thank you, Tom. Appreciate it.
I mean, the worst dancer is definitely Fonzie. He's lost some practice. You know, we used to go dancing once in a while, but not anymore.
Yeah, that is absolutely true. Tom, thank you so much for being here. I'm so excited.
The only way it could be better is if we were all together again. That was a great time there in Orlando, beginning of 2020 at Podfest. And I hope really soon we get to meet up again in real life.
Oh,
yes, absolutely.
Just so you know, quick factor here, random fact. We had no podcast when we met you. We're like,
Yep.
And then we met you and we're like, we need a podcast. Like this is it. We need one.
Yep.
We want
absolutely.
one. And so, random fact out there, dude. Tom, thank you again for being here. Just a little background for the audience. Like, who's Tom? I mean, you come from the military and now you're like 1,200 podcasts, amazing community, amazing people that you help out. Who are you? Why do you do what you do now?
That is a dangerous question to ask somebody with as much gray hair as I have, right? That could be a whole podcast interview there, but I am blessed, right? I was a Midwestern boy that got to go to the U.S. Naval Academy, graduated from there as an engineer. My first job out of college was running nuclear power plants in the Navy. And people are like, that's amazing. I'm like, no, what's amazing is that people much smarter than me figured out the systems and the processes to do that reproducibly. And that's something that's always impacted me in my business is we shouldn't be making it up as we go. We should have the systems, the processes to make it scalable, to make it reproducible. So got out of the service, worked in corporate America for a while, started a direct-to-patient durable medical equipment rental business. Yes, we were voted the number 2 most unsexy thing to sell online. I think it was like Inbound 2012 or something. We lost to Industrial Lubricants, but built that business up with inbound marketing, using content to attract, engage, delight people, sold that business off. And then I started to hypothesize, I wonder if you could use like guest blogs, if you could do the same thing on podcasts with podcast interviews. And that's really the evolution of what Interview Valet is. I live in Kalamazoo, Michigan, halfway between Chicago and Detroit, which proves that you can do podcast interviews from anywhere.
Ah, so good.
Wow, that's amazing. And I just can't stop thinking on how cold probably it is there right now.
While we were prepping for the show, Fonzie's like, I'll be outside. He's like the outside baby here. Like, I love to be inside. And he's like, I'm just going to be outside grabbing this sun. And he comes back in like shaking. It's like, man, it's like Florida weather. It's like 60 and he's like shaking. So yeah, we cannot, it's the cold. It's not for us.
Yeah.
So,
Tom, thank you for sharing that story. I love the fact that you mentioned systems and processes, and I'm sure my brother is even more thankful because he is the one that put all the operations on this side of the business. I'm definitely more of the free flow guy.
Yes.
But, I'm curious because those transitions are probably not very common, right? From the military on a nuke plane to podcasting. What challenges did you face throughout that journey? Because I'm sure there were plenty where you maybe decided to almost quit, or am I wrong?
No, at times I think I was too stubborn to quit, too stubborn or too stupid. But with that, I think often the struggle is looking backwards as opposed to looking forwards, right? Of what's the next thing is so many times we don't have a future. We just have an extension of the past, right? Let's going to take last year and do it 5% different. Well, that's okay. But in today, as fast as the world is changing, I think if you can look out and say, what can I take from what I used to know and what I learned, and how can I apply that to the future? To me, that's a lot more fun. Last year, I already did last year. Why would I want to do it just plus 5%? Let's take what I learned there and apply it to the future. To me, that's exciting.
Oh, that's so good too. Like, and sometimes we use the past as that base, but I love it because in our minds, and I think it was maybe because of the way that we got raised and playing soccer, right? Like the world, it's endless. We can go ahead and do that. And I think, our parents from the very beginning, they were like, dude, if you want to go play professional soccer, you can, right? Even though you are from Venezuela, even though you're from a country that soccer is not the main sport and the only thing that they play is baseball, right? But do you think most people have that mindset where it's like, hey, I want that, I'm gonna go get it, right? I've had these conversations not only with our team where it's like, hey, we can go and create these amazing content pieces, these amazing multiplication of content, right? Like 300 in just a week, for example, right? Or I can talk to my wife and be like, hey, honey, can we build a house? And she's like, no, absolutely not. Like, what? Why? And I'm like, can we go get it, right? Do you think most people are trapped in that mindset of like, I can't really do it. I can just only get better just a tiny little bit instead of going all in at something?
I think we all have it when we're born, and society beats it out of us, right? My best business coach is my 6-year-old granddaughter. Man, she can dream. She can ask the questions. She sees everybody as her friend, as an ally. There's no competition. There's no limits. And I think that's as normally as human beings, what we're born with, right? We're creators too. But then I think there's a certain point in our life where it's all of a sudden, well, this is the way we've always done it. You can't do it. You can't go too far with that. And really, we start to believe in those limitations too. And I think the people that that go beyond that are the ones that don't know it's a limitation, or nobody's told them that you can't do it. That's why sometimes people that come into an industry that have never been told, no, you can't do that, they end up doing it, right? They work so hard before, and they do it before somebody can tell them that's not possible. So I think it's a great day today, is that there's a lot of problems in the world, but there's no better time to be alive, right? With the tools that we have, we don't have a whole lot of excuses, right? It's not, we're not told that we can't do this or we can't afford that. This tool that we're using right now, right? It's amazing. And you think about it, the biggest companies in the world couldn't have afforded this 5 or 10 years ago. And now, there's free versions of it. And I love it.
Yeah, absolutely. Tom, thank you for sharing that. And I love the fact that your best business coach, is your old niece or granddaughter.
My granddaughter. And I'll throw in, I've got a 4-year-old grandson too, that's also a good business coach. You know how you're supposed to ask the, whatever it is, 6 whys to get the root answer?
Yep. Yeah.
Well, when he was 3 years old, he didn't stop at 6. And he kept asking, why? And, I could have blown him off and just said, because, but I kept thinking, that's a good question. Let's figure that one out. And I think we can learn a lot from kids, right?
Absolutely.
They see the opportunity.
Yeah, I mean, clearly we're all learning here with Fonzie every single day.
I love it, Tom, because there are so many analogies with kids on learning, right? And now I ask myself, why, if there's so many analogies with kids about learning, like, for example, the kids that when they're learning how to walk, that they fall and they keep getting up and they fall and they keep trying, why we kind of like revert when we go, if you want to call it that, when we grow older, and when we fall, we stop, right? But then we look back at kids and we're learning from there. I found this super interesting, but, I think those are false beliefs that are instilled in us as we are growing up, like you just mentioned. And lately, since we started the podcast, one of my favorite ways now to kind of like get rid of those false beliefs are conversations with other people, right? And I can tell you have, this extremely valuable experience, not only because, you have incredible experiences throughout your life building businesses in very different industries, but you've had 1,200 other conversations just in podcasts, if you want to put it that way, right? Yes. And I think that is extremely valuable, and I'm sure you've learned so much from it. So I'm curious, right? Because I do want to start transitioning early into this topic of leveraging on other people's platforms, but I'm curious for you, how was at first getting into podcasting? How was it for you? How did it feel to start sharing your message out loud? Was it scary? What was there ever a doubt?
Oh, I think whenever you start something new, it's scary, right? From riding a bike to jumping out of a plane to starting your own podcast. And I always say the first time you do it is probably going to be the worst time you do it. So yes, my first podcast interviews, it was like getting up on stage. I remember the first time. It was like, I didn't know if I wanted to cancel or puke or do both, right? But you get used to it. And I think the other thing is this is, back in 2014. So it was a little bit newer, now in 2020, we've all been used to being on camera. I mean, even my dog, when he walks into the camera shot,
Love it.
we're used to being on camera. So I don't think it's as intimidating, say, as getting up on a stage. But yeah, it's like the first time you hear yourself, it's a little bit weird. The first time you see yourself on video, it's a little bit weird. Just get over it, is the way I look at it.
I love it. I mean, the first time I heard my voice, like from this mic, I was like, "Oh damn, you sound so sexy." I mean, I'm not gonna lie, I was very surprised, but then my wife didn't like it, so she's like, "I'm not gonna listen to your show." So I'm like, I cannot win.
It is funny. It is funny, Tom, because a lot of people are like, "I don't like hearing my voice," right? And we were actually listening to one of the episodes that you sent us, and you were talking about having a good mic and sending a good mic to the people that work with you, actually, which is it's pretty key. And now that my brother says this, I feel like every single time I hear someone saying I don't like my voice is because maybe they haven't recorded from a decent mic, right? And it's pretty important. And we stand behind our message, and our message is quality of the message is more important than quality of the production. And we always give this example. Like, you can watch the best produced video out there, but if the message doesn't captivate you, you're gonna stop watching it halfway. But how many times have you seen a video of a talking head that doesn't move, but the message, it just catches your attention and you stay there for the full hour watching the video? Now, add to that a nice mic, a nice audio that enhances your voice and makes and it actually makes you even fall in love with your own voice, like my brother here, right? How exciting is that? So I'm curious, what do you see in people when it comes to that too?
Well, I just look at it as, how do you want to show up? Do you want to show up sounding great? I think of if you invited me to a physical stage, right? Come out, speak to this audience and up on the stage. Well, I wouldn't show up like rolling out of bed, in my bathrobe, looking awful, right? Because like you said, you might have a wonderful message, but if you don't look like an expert, people are going to, if you look like a homeless guy that just came on stage, they probably won't listen to you. And I think it's the same way on a podcast, right? You need to show up sounding as good as the host, because that's how people are going to judge you. And, we make judgments, right? Not as a good thing or a bad thing, but if you sound wonderful and I sound like I'm calling in from prison, it's probably not going to help my credibility.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, sorry, Fonzie, but when we first decided to start podcasting or creating a podcast, it was actually called Brews and Bros, right? And we were recording this from like this corner of Fonzie's bedroom. We tried to like make the corner like pretty with like these books and lights and stuff like that. But we had two different camera lights, and I just had a ton of friction because just the setup was like taking us an hour, right? Obviously, at that time, about 2 years ago, there was no office, there was no studio. It was us freelancing, right? So then we recorded 5 episodes, and that's it. They go to the vault. They haven't seen the light of day. It was really changing. One of the things that helped us start was removing all the friction, which is, the editing or whatnot. And we were very fortunate that we invested in an equipment like the Rodecaster, that this recording, there's no post production whatsoever, but these helped us remove the friction on post after because of the setup that we have, right? So for us, that worked, right? And we were fortunate enough to make the investment for, the equipment and the quality mics and the stuff that helped us from the very beginning. Once we launch Content is Profit. What would you recommend people that are starting on this journey of publishing? Because sometimes we stop because we see a lot of friction. It's like, oh man, I gotta edit this now. Oh man, I gotta do this setup and this stuff. And then because of that, they might not execute. So what would you recommend to people kind of starting this journey of publishing through podcast?
Yeah, and I think uh, excellent or perfect can be the enemy of good, right? And the other thing is, what has changed between the last time we met in real life? You guys started a podcast. I didn't, right? Because I look at it and I say, doing a podcast, anybody that says it's easy has either never done it or never done it well. The great ones make it look easy. It's like, it's like playing professional sports and you're like, oh, I'd like to go out there and, play for an hour and make millions of dollars. You don't see all the hard work that goes into it. So, I'm an engineer by degree. And, I look at return on investment means more, getting more out. Sometimes it means putting less in. And that's one of the things that I love about using other people's platforms, right? It's like, that idea of using other people's money as leverage. Well, I look at it as using other people's platforms. So I am thrilled to be here, guys. But,
good.
I showed up a couple minutes before. We'll talk here, and then I'll leave. But you still have to repurpose it, promote it, post it, all those other things. So I feel bad. You're doing all the hard work, but I'm getting a lot of the benefit of it. So that's one of the things that I always look and say, see what you love to do. If you love to be an audio engineer, then do your own podcast if you really want to do that. But there's often easier ways, like for me, I'm an engineer by degree. I've written a lot of blogs in my life, but every one felt like a homework assignment, right? So I'm not going to write blogs anymore, but I will talk and we can transcribe this. And then, people can repurpose it and make me sound like, English is my first language by writing a blog. So I think, it's a wonderful thing that we can produce the way that's easiest for us and then repurpose in the way that's easiest for other people. I just want to put this out
here. I think we just discovered a new frictionless step.
A new frictionless approach for sure.
Approach. I love this because, think about Fonzie. We played this wrong, man. We should have been guests from the very beginning.
We should have been guesting from the very beginning.
Before we even started the show, man. Well, thank you. Tom, where were you a year ago, man? Just saying.
Tom, incredible. That was definitely a mind-blowing moment. I was here sitting in my head and I'm like, wow. What a great alternative for people, right? That they don't want to invest either some of their resources or some of their time into actually producing a podcast. Because not only that, it comes the learning curve as well, right? Because it takes some time, or you're going to have to hire a team, somebody else to do it. So your approach is absolutely fantastic. And I'm curious, I want to backtrack a little bit because you talk about judgment, right? People, sometimes they judge you when they see you at first, and that is 100% true. That happens, right? So, and I'm curious because you said it is important how you show up, but some people, and by some people I say myself sometimes, right? Because, and I'm gonna frame this question with a little story. But my ex-girlfriend, right? She would say, "Hey, we're gonna go visit some friends. Why don't you dress nicer?" And I'm like, you know what? I want to dress how I want to dress. That will lead to a fight. Don't get me wrong. Don't do that too much. But that will lead to a fight. But I was like, my value is not determined for the first judgment of me, like how I look, right? Again, I didn't dress as a bum, I promise. But what would you say to people that said that in showing themselves, right? It is important how you show up, but they're at the same time, they want to be them. They don't want to craft their image to fit into somebody else's views. Does that make sense?
Very much so. And I think you have to be consistent, right? Sometimes you hear people that try to be personas. You hear those on radio DJs, right? Hey, welcome. And they go into their radio thing and you're just like, this is so fake. Just be consistent. So if somebody sees you at the meeting, if somebody sees you on a podcast interview, anything like that, it's the same person, right? I guarantee you, I was probably at Podfest wearing a sport coat and no tie. And why? Because I did decades in corporate America. I don't have ties anymore. I don't like them. The other thing too is I'm always carrying phones or credit card or cards or something like that. So it's either wear a fanny pack to hold it all or a sport coat to put the pockets in there. So it's like, this is sort of my corporate uniform. So just show up consistently and, sound consistently. People, it's so easy to Google somebody and find them on different platforms. So if all of a sudden I show up one way on your show and another way, it just puts people start throwing the BS flag, and they're like, yes, I don't know what's wrong here, but something is wrong. And though I look at it as today, there's so many customers out there, and I know that on podcasts, people either turn me up or turn me off, and that's fine, right? If I'm not for you, there's got to be somebody that can help you. But this is who I am. I remember a boss of mine in the Navy said, if his mom couldn't change him in the first 18 years of his life, you're not going to change him now. So it's like people will be drawn to you.
Yeah, I love that, Tom. We often say your message is your filter. And I think you just added another layer to it, which is your personality as well is part of that filter. And the way you are, people are going to relate with you and they're going to see themselves reflected in you. And I think in part that's also why it is important to be authentic, right? And then authentic and honest in all your interviews, because again, people are going to relate to you and they're going to relate to those stories that you have. So thank you so much for sharing that. And now going back into leveraging other people's platforms, because that was mind blowing. That was very exciting. I'm extremely curious. What is step number one for someone that is, okay, I don't want to put my resources and my time into creating my own platform, but I do want to go out there? And let's actually say step number two, because step number one is obviously giving you a call and working with you. But what would be step number two for them? What could they do to start getting booked?
And I would say that step number one isn't working with me, right? We do it with excellence, but like you guys have the book, right? I share openly how we do this. I'll give away the book here. But I would say, step number one is figure out who you want to talk to. Who's your ideal audience? I can remember somebody came to us and they wanted to talk to C-level executives of publicly traded companies. And they said, yeah, I'd like to be on this podcast. And it was a great podcast. But the host started every podcast with, yo, yo, yo. I'm like, do you think C-level executives are listening to that? He goes, no, but I listened to it. It's a great podcast. I'm like, yes, it is. But it's like, that's not where your customers are.
Yeah.
It'd be like fishing for sharks in a swimming pool, right? It's water, but you're not going to find what you want there. So I think the biggest thing is to find out who you want to talk to. Bigger is not better. Better is better. And, if you can find the right audience, what's that old line? You can't say enough of the wrong things to the right people or the right things to the wrong people. And there's 1.7 million podcasts right now. You don't have time to go on all of them and check them out. So really, the first thing is, where are the people that I want to talk to?
Wow.
Look.
Wait, real quick. I'm sorry for interrupting here, but Tom, I think you might be the first person to go in all 1.7 million podcasts on this pace that you have.
At the pace,
with the 1,200 podcasts that you've been on. You might be the first one. Who knows?
I know, man. Talk about, shortening that curve.
Yeah.
Dude, I love it. And, it's so similar, right? Like we often talk with the people that we help to. They're like, hey, I want to sell stuff. Like I want to promote it to all of these people, right? And we're like, okay, where are the people that actually buy from you, right? Like, and we have this example that is with a fitness studio, right? And this fitness studio is kind of a little bit of a higher end. The memberships is more than $100. It's not for everybody, right? And they were trying to sell the membership or convince people that were buying dollar slices next door, right? That might not be your customer. And they're like, well, we're getting 50 leads. Yeah, because you bought them a pizza, but they don't. Not necessarily they're going to come because people might need it, but they might not want it, right? So then, let's go to a different fitness studio, similar price point. There might be people in there that are not happy with that solution, right? That's your ocean where your current sharks are swimming, right? And if they're not happy, they're going to want the solution that you're offering. So I see these very much in that same kind of framework together to get into like these other podcasts. Where is the people that already are consuming that kind of content, right? So it's incredible because now that brings massive clarity, not only for us as guests in other shows, but for people that might be listening, be like, okay, I don't have the resources. I don't, I want to remove the entire friction completely on producing a show, which we obviously highly recommend because that's our story. But at the same time, we can see, being as a guest at the first stage or even first and continuing while they might be building their platform as a huge win, right? Just like you've done in 1,200 episodes across the nation, right? And it's incredible. And I think it's a wonderful solution, a new perspective that we never thought about it because everybody was saying, oh, you guys got to publish. And I'm very thankful that this was the road that we took. But at the same time, there's other possibilities too. So you got to find what works for you at the time, right?
And I don't think it's an either or. I think it can be both, right?
Absolutely.
If you want to nurture your current customers, your current leads, having your own podcast is a great way to do it. But to actually go out and find new leads, to find new customers, that's where podcast guesting comes in there. And often people will say, which should I do? Either or. It's like, well, it's like Uber, right? Should I be an Uber driver or an Uber passenger? It's the same platform, but it's different goals. So I think it's just really focusing on what are you trying to do with this?
Yeah. I love that. Same platform, but different goals. That is very, very interesting.
Fonzie definitely tried the Uber driver thing and for one day on a Florida-Georgia game, and he was like, never again, I'll drive an Uber. Yes, I don't know if you're familiar with the Florida-Georgia game here in Jacksonville, but it gets a little crazy.
Some horror stories on Uber. We can definitely leave those for another episode. So I'm curious, when people come, so let's say I don't have a podcast at this moment, right? And I decide to go out there and be a guest in many other podcasts. And I know already which ones I want to be on. I know where my future clients are listening. So I go and do an outreach. What are the common challenges that you see on these people trying to book these appointments? Because I can definitely see as an objection, hey, you don't have a podcast. How do I know if you are actually going to be an expert on what you're talking about?
And thank you for saying outreach and not pitch, because you shouldn't hate, right? But so I'll loathe the word pitch. You pitch a baseball, you introduce a human being, and a lot of people will just go out there and pitch, right? And think about it. What are the three types of people that a podcast host wants to have on their show? Friends, friends of friends, and people they want to be their friends. A cold pitch is not in there. So really think about, okay, well, how could I do this? If I know them already, all right, that's an easy one. That's the friends. It could be friends of friends. And really that's where we come in. We've got relationships with over 3,500 podcasters. We've been doing it for 6 years, over 20,000 interviews. So we've got those relationships. And then the last one is presenting yourself as someone they'd like to be friends with. And, I love how Gary Vaynerchuk talks about, what is it? Jab, 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 right hook. I probably missed a couple jabs in there. I look at it as serve, 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 ask, right? So if it's just a cold pitch and it's like, I want to be on your podcast to sell my stuff, nobody's going to say that yes to that, right? Yeah. But if you listen to the podcast, leave a rating and review, right? We're all vain. We all listen for our own name. So every podcast host will read your rating and review. Follow them on social media. Share some of their content. Comment on it, right? Show them, serve, serve, serve. Then reach out to them and say, I love the show. I've really appreciated this episode. I think I could offer your audience some value by sharing this, right? So you're serving. If you keep doing that, people will ask you to be on the show. So from that standpoint, come at it from, I always say relationships are the ultimate currency. Start building a relationship with them. Don't just try to use and abuse their audience.
Wow, that's incredible. While you were sharing that, a story popped into my head of our own experience, which is when we started selling content, right? Content repurposing. we encountered the situation where they said, this you guys are doing is amazing, but where is your stuff, right? Because we weren't practicing what we were preaching. And the point that I want to make is that you, Tom, and your company are the prime example of practicing what you preach. Because as you were telling this story, I was like, wow, that is incredible. Because, we were in a call in a previous call before this podcast. We got to know each other, and it was great. And guess what? A few weeks later, I get an email from one of your team members, and she's like, hey, I know Tom is going to your podcast. Also, I have a few recommendations of people that I would love to make an introduction with that they might be a great fit for your podcast.
Yeah.
And we are looking for guests in our podcast. So guess what? I looked into the sheet of paper that the one sheet of paper that she sent with the information. I was like, that is great.
That is so
I would
good.
really appreciate an introduction. Thank you so much. And like you said, those relationships is the ultimate currency. And you're 100%. We can't, put more emphasis into this, but benefit number one for us is starting the podcasting platform was building those relationships. So when you can even take that to another level and now build relationships while being in other people's podcasts, you're just elevating your strategy overall.
Yeah.
And with that, it does come business growth. It's incredible.
Yeah. At the end, and I think that, you touched on this, but it's about being a good human being, right? Like, it's like, look, I'm going to serve you, right? Like, I have something that might help you and your audience, right? But at the same time, it's like, how else can I elevate this relationship? How else can I help you? I mean, you guys reaching out and sending that, I mean, we never asked you for that, right? Like, and that was like incredible. We're never, ever going to forget that, whatever we book the interviews, or if we don't end up doing the interviews, we're never going to forget it. And that's going to be a massive, like, it's a really good experience. Like, it was like a feel good moment. Not like it was a feel good moment, because nobody ever did that for us, right? Like, and it's like, hey, let me send you that book. Let me send you this other information. Let me put you in contact with this other person, and that caused an impression. And now, if on the business side, I can refer you. I'm like, you need to go talk to Tom, because he has an amazing community. He has an amazing product. He has an amazing interview style. He has an amazing team, whatever that is, right? And I feel like that's when we started to see the benefits of publishing either guest or host, right? Because the first 20 episodes, that was us. It was just me and Fonzie talking, right? And then we're like, it'll be cool to interview some people, right? Now that we have this, like, why don't we establish these relationships? And as soon as we start interviewing people, the relationships start to flourish. And it came from we were operating from a place of not need anymore, because before the show, we were operating from a place of need. Now we don't have the need. Now we're developing these relationships, and everything exploded. Everything exploded. So if you now implement what you're telling us, what you're teaching us here today, it's just going to be an amazing experience. I can't wait. Now, like, I got the feel goods, Tom. I'm just saying.
Yeah. Tom, I don't know if you noticed that I've been taking some notes in here, and I wrote down that actually introductions are even more powerful than outreach, right? Having someone like you, a super connector, because that's what I'm considering you at this point, having a super connector introduce you to other people, your rapport immediately goes up. You kind of like, you skip that phase of having to build rapport.
I would totally agree with you. And I'd flip it around the other side, right? Yep. Anybody that is listening to this live stream of the podcast, they had no idea who I was, right? They know the two of you. So by you introducing me, I get the authority. And so that, that's what's important. The other thing that I think is key in there too, is there's a phrase in digital marketing today that says you're one funnel away. Now, I love automation, right? And big fan of the company that says that is their tagline there. But the problem is I haven't seen that in my life, right? To me, you're one conversation away. The best things in life, in my life, have come through conversations, right? The best customers came from conversations with you guys at Podfest. My wife, my bride, did not come through a funnel. She came through a conversation. She came through an introduction from a buddy of mine. And I will forever be thankful for that, he did something that I couldn't. He introduced me to her. And so I think while while a lot of digital marketing is neat because you can scale it up and everything like that. I don't think we can forget that we're humans, and humans like to have conversations. We like to work with people we know, like, and trust. And, now today you can have that at scale with things like this.
Absolutely. You just reminded me of, his name is Daniel Den, and we interviewed him here in the podcast, and he was talking that he was one of those marketers that made a lot of money in the internet without talking to anybody. And then I got said, super lonely. This was super boring. I wanted to connect with people. And the more we do this, because we started like Daniel, we didn't do a lot of money like Daniel, but we had the intentions of, but we got lonely pretty quick. And then we were like, you know what? The internet and these platforms, right? The podcast, it's a great tool to build on your real life and actually build those connections and have those conversations that are going to take you to the next level.
I can think of a few years ago in Kalamazoo, we had a very dark day. There was a man that was very sick that went on a shooting spree, and it was a Saturday night. I woke up and looked at my phone, and it was a bunch of podcasters that were texting me that said, "Hey, just saw the news, praying for you and your family." And I'm scrolling through this on a Sunday morning going, wonder what they're talking about. I walk downstairs and my bride, tells me that, there was somebody that went on a shooting spree. Yeah. These were people that I had never met in real life, but they heard the news, they heard Kalamazoo, and they thought, hey, Tom's from there. Let me check in on him. I was getting texts and messages from people that I'd never met in real life before I started to get them from friends and family. So I think that's a testament to the kinds of relationships you can build online.
Yeah, absolutely. I remember when we first started the show, right? Like, and we started the show when COVID hit, because a lot of our clients were brick and mortars, right? And we were like on day and day, and we'll drive to them and we'll establish these conversations, and then everything closed, right? And our 80% of our business just out the window within a week, right? And we're like, wow, I guess this is the time where, we change perspective and we do this thing and start connecting, right? And I remember in the middle of the whole thing, my wife is like, hey, babe, like, where are your friends? Right? Because like before we were out and about chatting with these people and connecting in real life, because that was the market that we were kind of dealing with. And then, and I was like, don't worry, babe, it's okay. Like we're okay. All my friends are now online, and we've been developing these amazing relationships, right? Either they end up doing business with us or not. It's still really good relationships. Like, for example, Mary Hyatt, the person that introduced us to you, she's like, oh my God, you guys have to come to Nashville. Here's my Airbnb. Like, let's hang out. And we're like, and then Nate is a good friend of hers who's there. He's been on the show too, Nate Freitas.
He introduced us to Mary.
And then Mary to you. And like, it's incredible. And just like that, we've been able to connect with amazing people all around the world, right? And now I'm sure if we send a message, be like, hey, we're going to this place to visit, is somebody there? Somebody will raise their hand, like, absolutely, guys, let's go grab dinner. And then the network expands, and then the experience gets better, and then life gets better, right? So, Katie, if you're listening to this show, please be okay. Like, don't worry. Like, don't stress out. We have friends. But that's a testament, right? Like, this online tool allows us to connect so many people. We're just chatting with Sergio, who's in Colombia, living in Italy, right? Helping amazing entrepreneurs in South America. Wow, what an amazing time to start connecting and creating these amazing relationships all over the place. So what you do, Tom, is amazing. Thank you for the value that you provide, and for opening our eyes that it's not only like you don't need your own platform. You can also go and develop these amazing relationships, even though you don't have your own platform.
Yeah, absolutely. And I've noticed the more relationships we build, the more our business grows as well. And it's like they just go hand in hand. Yeah. And for us, obviously, our business is very closely related to our personal lives as well. And I've noticed the change in my personal life, in conversations that I have with regular people day to day, people that I now meet at the coffee shop, and we start talking. And it's incredible. It gives you a lot of pleasure. It's amazing. So, Tom, we're almost getting to the end here, but I'm very curious for those people that might be wondering, they know they can provide value, and they just have that little fear of asking, right? Because that is big fear of being rejected.
Mhm.
How can they move past that ask and don't really, like how can they take that leap of faith and take their chances? Because at the end of the day, if we don't ask, nothing's going to happen.
Yeah, and one of the things is, start off with a small ask. Don't start with asking Joe Rogan, "Hey, can I be on your podcast?" Like you and 10,000 other people just asked him today, and you're probably going to get rejected on that. And I don't. It's more of an ask. Can I help you? Hey, I've got something that could help you. And if you look at it, not so much in asking, but in serving. Right. So if you can say, how can I serve your audience? I'd love to serve your audience with this. I think people see that, whether you come as a taker or a giver. And, this is a small community too. I think of DJ Doug Sandler from the Nice Guys on Business. He always said, you don't have to promote yourself on a podcast, right? He says, if you do a good job, he'll promote you better than you ever could. And podcasters know podcasters, right? How did we get introduced? Well, Mary Hyatt's been a client for years. She introduced us, right? You do a good job, at the end of a podcast, just say, hey, is there anybody else, any podcasters that that you think I could bring value to? Man, it's that old, and they told two friends and so on and so on. Your dance card can get filled really quick just by doing a good job. So with that, I think, it's that fear of being on camera, that fear of hearing your own voice, that fear of asking. Well, I'll go back to, my grandkids, if they had the fear of getting on the swing set, they wouldn't have a whole lot of fun. So, just sort of get over that fear, realize that it probably means there's something fun on the other side of it.
Yes, I do. I think we've started to use it as an indicator. It's like, man, that's a little scary. Well, maybe we should explore that situation just a little bit more and see where it leads.
Yeah. Normally, besides the other side of fear, there's a lot of growth, right? Unless you're like in front of a bear, don't just go like charging towards the bear.
It's fine.
Some common sense in there, people, please.
Yeah. Tom, so you've bombarded this show with golden boulders and pure value. I mean, other than your book, right? We're just gonna attach this podcast. How to on the platform? This is it. This is the guide. What would be your number one action point? Like, what's your to-go action for people trying to start this game?
I would say there's a few resources, right? So there's one that I'll put it back on interviewvalet.com/CIP or CIP, content is profit. It's an assessment. It's like 10 questions. And it's 10 questions on how podcast interview marketing will work for you. And we'll give you a score on that. And then we'll give you ideas on, hey, here's some things that you could do to get even better results from it. You say that it's amazing that I've been on 1,200 podcast interviews. Now, the first few hundred were embarrassing and they didn't get results. I don't want people to have that same experience. I want you to have great experience from the very first one. So, take that assessment. I sell a lot of copies of the book. I give away a whole lot more. So if somebody comes back to interviewvalet.com/CIP, I'll give you a free copy of the book. If you're in the States, I'll mail you a copy. Or if you're outside the States, I'll email you a copy.
Awesome. Wow. Man. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. And everybody listening, please go there. All the links are going to be right at the description. Just click there and take your assessment. Get your book. Is amazing.
Yeah. I want to relate to the intro that we said, you were one of the two vendors that we still remember from Podfest. And that's true. Like the only ones I remember is you, Tom, and Tom Rossi. I'm sure you know Tom Rossi.
Oh, yeah. I do.
Yeah.
And he's amazing. He's actually from Jacksonville too. So if you ever come to Jacksonville, Tom, and it's funny, right? Because we mentioned that you were so valuable, like you gave so much value when we met you. You were just willing to help, put yourself out there, gave us the book, and you're doing the exact same thing right now. And it has been 8 months maybe. So it's a testimony of that consistency that you were just talking about in this episode. Show yourself exactly as you are every single time. So for that, Tom, I really appreciate it because I think that is an extremely valuable lesson for people that are listening to this. Because I know a lot of people are struggling to find who they are, or they might be actually trying to figure out who to be in front of the camera when all they have to do is be themselves. So thank you for the reminder.
Tom, that last question. Sorry, go ahead.
Yes. And I think the biggest problem we have today is obscurity, right? There's millions, hundreds of thousands of people you could help with your current product or service. The biggest problem is they don't know you exist. So I don't have to change. I don't have to do this, all the rest of that. I just have to be known by the people that I could help. And, there's a great day here where we can do that in mass, even during COVID where we're locked down, you can still connect with people.
Absolutely.
That's amazing, man. Thank you so much again. I'm going to say that podcast guesting, it's also a form of publishing, right? You're in other people's audiences, right? So where would you be if you did not never started publishing or never started guesting in on other shows?
My world would be small. I wouldn't know a lot of people, and I wouldn't be able to help a lot of people. You talked about, leveraging other people's audiences and publishing. Well, 15 years ago, we were doing guest blogs, and that was a way to get into front of other people and help people. And I just look at it today as that, I've been taught a lot of things in my life. I've been helped by a lot of people, and we're blessed to be a blessing. And they didn't teach me just so it could die with me. I think if we've all got a obligation, if you will, to help other people with what we know, with our experience. We're supposed to surround ourselves with great people, right? And that doesn't mean just people ahead of you, but, people that are your peers, people that are ahead of you, people that are behind you. We all know something that's ordinary to us, but amazing to other people. And I think today more than ever, it's so easy to share what you've learned, and it helps other people. It helps your life. We all have a better life when we cooperate here.
That's so good.
I love it. There's I have a little post-it in front of my desk that says, you only get to keep what you give, right? And I love the fact that you said something might be ordinary to us, but it might be amazing for others. And I think sometimes we forget that.
Yeah.
We think that because we just know it, everybody else might know it, right? And the fact is that you never know which conversation, which message you put out there can change someone's life. So again, thank you so much for the reminder. You have been just dropping so many knowledge bombs in here, Tom. We really appreciate it.
Tom, where can people find you? Where can people connect with you if they wanna chat?
Sure. So I'm the only Tom Schwab in all of Kalamazoo. So if you look me up on LinkedIn, I'm there. If you look me up on Facebook, you're going to see all the family pictures. But if you go to interviewvalet.com/CIP, I'll put the assessment there. I'll put a free copy of my book. You can get that. And then I'll also put my calendar links and all my social media there. If any of this resonated with you and it's like, wow, I wonder if I could use that, you can jump on a free, strategy call, and we can talk about your business and how you could work on that. And that's all over at interviewvalet.com/CIP.
Thank you, Tom. And I do want to encourage everybody to not only go to the website and connect with him on LinkedIn and obviously get the book because it's amazing, but I do want to encourage them to hop on a call with you, Tom, because I had that call with you and it was incredible. At the end, we're certain that we're going to be working with you sometime soon. And I do want to encourage people to have that call because, like you said, you're just going to be delivering a lot of value.
Yeah. Well, all right. One last word? No? I'm like, this is so good.
I appreciate you guys and all that you do. Like I said before, anybody that says doing a show is easy or easy has never done it or never done it well. So thank you for all the work that you do and put into this. And I'm going to put the plug out there, right? So if you enjoy this, leave them a rating and review. That's how other people find out about it. And, talk about, what's ordinary to you is amazing to others. If you're listening to the show, it's ordinary to you, but there's a lot of people that it could help. So just take a few minutes and leave a rating and review.
Thank you so
Thank you,
much.
Tom. Thank you.
And with that being said, guys,
That's
thank you so much for tuning into the Contents Profit podcast. Go ahead and subscribe. Smash the subscribe button and follow us on social media at BizBrosCo.
That is right. And if you find this episode impactful, which I am sure you did, go connect with Tom right now.
Woo.
And don't forget to share it and leave a 5-star review. Thank you.
Bye, guys.
Bye.
All right.
Awesome. Tom,
Hey.
we're still live on Facebook right now.
Yeah, we have a little tradition. We'll do a quick selfie / screenshot. So we're gonna try something new today because
All right.
for the thumbnail here. Hold on. Let me get it right.
Now I got to put this other.
There we go. Yeah, let's go over this way, like this.
There we go. Oh, so
That looks great. Thank you,
that's
Tom.
so good. All right, Facebook. We'll see you guys on Wednesday.
My Facebook. Tom